I'll start, Bridget, by sort of describing Google Notebook LM and what it is and how you can start using it today. And then we'll jump into the second offering. So Google Notebook LM is really designed to serve as your virtual research assistant. It can help you synthesize information from multiple sources really quickly and efficiently. It uses a feature called source grounding, which I actually had not heard before. I hadn't heard this terminology before. It sounds to me sort of similar to retrieval augmented generation, which we've talked about in other contexts. But source grounding is the idea that you as the user will create, let me back up. So you log in, you create what's called a notebook, which is sort of like a folder or file, right? And then you use this source grounding feature to upload document types that you want to use as the basis of the information that you engage with. So these document types right now can be anything from Google Docs. It links directly with Google Drive if you're working in a Google workspace. It can be PDFs that you upload from your desktop. It can be text files, Google Slides. You can upload audio files, MP3s. At least the last time I tested it, you could not upload MP4 video files yet, but I believe you can now copy and paste YouTube URLs. And my understanding is it's not watching the YouTube videos, it's using the transcript that's generated underneath the videos as a text interface. So once you upload whatever your content is into the notebook, that becomes the knowledge base for the AI to engage with you. And so you can do so many different things with it. You can ask it to summarize all of the content that you've uploaded. You can ask it to generate FAQs if you're, maybe you're running a website and you're taking all of the information from your website and generating FAQs to populate the website. You can have an intelligent Q&A with it and ask it questions about the documents. It can help you brainstorm new ideas. It also has this really cool advanced citation feature that I think is helpful in a world where a lot of the models currently generate results, but we're not really sure where they're pulling the individual facts or assertions. This Notebook LM actually has a citation feature, so you can go in and click and check on the source document to make sure it's accurate. It currently supports 38 different languages. So this will help us with everything from trying to digest content in languages that are different from the language that we can understand and speak and interpret. But I think it also opens up lots of possibilities for having more interconnected conversations with people around the globe, which is really exciting. So it's an incredibly powerful tool. I think maybe the coolest feature is the podcast creation feature. So you can upload anything, one document. I think the limit now is 50 documents, and then press a button that says create a podcast. And it takes maybe 2 or 3 minutes. And at the end of it, you hear two people like you and me, Bridget, talking back and forth about the content that you've uploaded. And it is wild. Like the first time you create a podcast out of your own content is a really, really weird experience. And Ethan Mollick, whom we've referenced many times, is a leading expert on AI, has made the point that Notebook LM has actually been available for a year now, but they just added this podcast feature. And that created the magic that allowed people to get like really, really excited about it and connect with it and be sort of fascinated by it in a way that the text only version didn't accomplish. So it makes the point that the way that we encounter artificial intelligence matters with respect to adoption and uptake and creativity and all of those things. So have you tried Notebook LM, Bridget?
I have, and it's really stunning. And I'll tell you what I've used it for. So I've used it when there's a dense document that I have to understand, but try as I might, like I just get bored in, page 2, like over and over again. So just for one example, no offense, White House, but the White House AI regulatory guidance that now is kind of old, but I still need to understand some pieces of it as I, as I'm thinking about all the things that we might want to do better in dispute resolution. So I uploaded that document and used the podcast feature. And the podcasters are so like engaging. They're they're so human sounding. They like step on each other's words and, laugh and have don't have all answers. They have like questions about the material as they're going through it, right? As they're like talking about it. And for me personally, it's a better way to get information into my brain than just reading a really, really dry, dense document. I mean, I can go for a walk in fresh air and listen to it. So we're thinking of all kinds of really interesting use cases. We have so much educational material that you could imagine putting out in this new format for people who want to learn a little bit more about alternative dispute resolution, and but we're working on some really cool things with it. It's a pretty stunning technology. I'm really enjoying it. Are you using it for work things or personal things? Both.
Well, one both. And I've had friends, to your point, I've had friends who are corporate counsel in the corporate counsel's office, in law firms, tell me that they take publicly available documents like agency proceedings and minutes from congressional testimony, and things that they would have to maybe comb through when they get home from work, and create a podcast that they listen to in the car on the way home. So I think, to your point, it's one thing I've been thinking about a lot lately, not only with Notebook LM, but just generally, is what does the future of all of the ways that we communicate look like? I was writing a recommendation letter for a student recently, an alum. And I just thought, will these tools that we use even to apply for clerkships and bar admission and jobs continue to have the value that they have? Like, what value does a cover letter have in a world where any of us can snap our fingers and generate a cover letter that's compelling and interesting? Are we going to want to continue reading that content, or will we consume it in a different way like this? So one personal experience I had with Notebook LM was I try to look for places where I really have no idea where to get started and play with the AI. And my son just started fourth grade, and he's studying Mandarin for the first time. And he's trying to get up to speed because he's new, and his classmates have been studying for about 4 years. So his teacher sent home a whole bunch of YouTube videos that he could watch. And so we took a lot of the vocabulary lists that he had, beginner vocabulary in Mandarin. So these are things like colors, names of family members, animals, things you would learn at the beginning of learning a language. And we copied and pasted the Mandarin words and their English translation into Notebook LM. And I clicked create a podcast. And I was just really curious because I knew it had language capabilities. I've also heard people say that Google Translate doesn't always translate accurately. And because I don't speak Mandarin, I couldn't say for sure whether it would translate accurately. But I was curious to see what would come out. And the podcast, like you said, were two people talking, sort of having like a really dynamic conversation infused with emotion about elementary level Mandarin language. And I never told the LM that I was working with a new learner, but I suspect that it understood from the basic level of vocabulary I gave it that this was for a new learner. And it was an English-based podcast, and they did offer a couple of pronunciations of a few of the words on the list. But more interestingly to me, it didn't try to provide translation services. It talked about what it's like to be at the beginning of learning a language and some of the things beyond just memorization of vocabulary that new language learners should appreciate, like the beauty and the design and the nuance of different languages as compared with other languages. And that sort of blew my mind, that it took that next leap of like, these are really basic words. So maybe this is somebody just starting the language, and maybe we can get them excited about it, which both my son and I were both excited about for different reasons. I just found the technological experience to be interesting. And he found it to be a really accessible way to get excited about learning a new language. So I thought that was really interesting, and something I hadn't really considered before.
That's amazing. I was talking about it recently with two friends who are judges and we're preparing for oral arguments, and you have so much reading, and it's all publicly available, right? It's all briefing that's available on the website. There's no confidential information. And they're in their cars a lot. And I suggested it. I said, why don't you load all the briefs in a particular case into Notebook LM and listen to other people talking about the case. Obviously, it's not a substitute. They have to read the briefs, and they will read the briefs. There's no shortcut, but it might be a different way to, engage with the issues in advance of preparing to talk to the lawyers about the case. So it's fascinating. It's really going to be another game changer. What do you think the other implications are for legal, other than another way for lawyers to process complicated information? Do you see other implications for the legal profession with this technology?
Yeah, it's funny. I go to a monthly dinner of lawyers, women lawyers. We get together once a month, and I was telling them about, because I'm annoying and I come to every dinner and talk about AI. It's like the informal AI roundtable. But I was telling them about Notebook LM, and my one friend immediately said, "Oh my gosh, like if I had that in civil procedure and could have uploaded like Erie or, International Shoe and had a podcast explain to me what those cases were about." And then I was thinking, uploading one case and having it talk to you about the case would be interesting. But if you were able to upload a whole unit of Civ Pro or torts or contracts and have the podcast sort of compare and contrast the different approaches that courts were taking in different factual circumstances, I think that would be really interesting. And I think people learn in all different ways. I didn't particularly relish going through and briefing case after case after case. This creates a little bit more of a dynamic learning environment. Other use cases that you see in legal?
I think it's going to be a game changer for complicated records. If you're a lawyer or an arbitrator or a mediator or a judge, and you want to get everybody on the same page about a complicated record. I've only just started playing around with the back and forth Q&A you can do with the Notebook LM, but it's such a good research assistant. It will put together a timeline and focus on specific places where there's clarity, and it just might be a really great, maybe a better tool for like a team of people that are working on the same complicated transaction or litigation, or it's just like adding a great additional, super smart, really nice paralegal. It just could be another member of the team in a way that I think it's going to be really effective for lawyers who use it.
I'm also thinking, this is the first time I've seen this create a podcast feature, which always means that it's the worst version of whatever we're going to see. And right now, the way that you engage with it is you just click a button. You don't give it any direction. Like, we want you to explore this angle or answer these questions. But I could see in the years ahead, maybe the months ahead at this rate, being able to direct the podcast host to focus on different elements of a case or set of cases. I also think, for the general public, I think there are huge opportunities to sort of leapfrog and make huge advances in natural language processing of documents that they get from a court, of trying to read judicial opinions or court orders and try and figure out exactly what's actually happening with their case. If you have a Notebook LM file or, notebook, and you can upload everything that you've had in a court case that you're involved with, and then ask it questions of the documents. And I see that as being like a really exciting thing. And you think about 10 years ago, trailblazers who were working in natural language processing and how manual the process was of trying to figure out exactly how people speak and how to direct them based on different words. I think we'll look back and it will seem so laborious as compared with what we're about to be able to do with it.
Thank you for tuning in to 2030 Vision, AI and the Future of Law. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to our podcast and leave a review. Stay informed and inspired as we continue to explore the AI-driven future of the legal profession. We'll see you next time.